Palico Padge, and welcome back to another episode of Sleepy Sunday Let's Play with the game The Away Team Lost Exodus additional content. We are doing alright. We haven't lost anyone recently, which is great. Always good news. We also managed to find the next stepping stone to be able to locate the fabled perfect planet, which we need to find in order to get who's left on our spaceship to have a new home and prosper and survive. The human race will continue as long as me as the AI gets them there. So it's not looking good, in all fairness. But so let's try and keep a little bit, positive. I'm recording this on at the end of the week. It's been a hard week. It's been a heavy week. I'm feeling it a bit. To be honest. But hey, you don't hear about my life story. Let's crack on, shall we? All right. So yes, we were stuck in a gravitational field which we could not escape. So we had to go onto the planet and sort out what was going on. And with that, we found new coordinates to a planet we are calling Clark. Sorry, a system we are calling Clark. Kent? Who knows? Guess we'll find out soon. Let's crack on, shall we? We left it with this new area where we have two things we can go and look at. We've got Clark 67, sounds promising, or Finney 61. I think this is going to be the next big story planet. So I think we should probably go further away first and then come back. I think that makes sense. So let's go to Finney. I mean, we got the fuel. The food isn't looking good, I'll be completely honest, but we've got the fuel. I mean, we're not starving yet, which is great, but I'm sure the game will fix that sooner or later for us. Oh, it's very planetary. So it's a star class of G. It's Terran, which is awesome. Surface temperature -Celsius. So we might want to take our gloves. I think we can get away with our fingerless gloves. I don't think we need the full-on gloves. And definitely a scarf. Maybe 2 layers. One will have to be thin though, or else I will sweat. Sensors are not getting a good reading on this planet, so it's unwise to send the crew down. You instruct the crew to remain on the ship and detach to the shuttle for a quick excursion to scoop up some raw materials. Nice. There are 2 spots where it seems like you might have a good chance at harvesting food. You only have time for one of them, however, and in either case it's going to be a very quick pass. Oh dear, isn't it always the way? You come across somewhere which looks opulent with food or resources, and you just can't spend the necessary time in order to be able to drain that planet completely of resources and leave it a husk of its former self. We aren't the aliens for Independence Day. We can't just suck up all the water and then move on. No. We've only got a small time frame in order to do this. So let's pick accordingly, shall we? We can go to the equatorial desert or the temperate jungle. I'd like to think there's more food in the jungle than there is on the desert. I'm sure there's someone out there who's going to prove me wrong. But hey ho, it's my playthrough. Back on the ship, Space Wizard volunteers to remote pilot the shuttle. They perform capably. Ooh, well done, Space Wizard. With the airlock open, the shuttle dips down low and collects a sample of organic matter, then heads quickly back to the ship. By the time it docks, the onboard drones have sorted through the collected material and purged anything harmful. Always good to know. Always good to know. So we've got 4 food off that. So we're back to where we started in order to go back on ourselves. Hey ho. So is the way sometimes. I mean, I'm hoping... Oh dear. I'm hoping it being called Clark, it's the end planet, but I guess we'll see. Although your mission isn't a scientific one, there are a number of stellar and interstellar phenomena you have been programmed to observe and study should the opportunity arise. Possible benefits range from expanding the boundaries of human knowledge, always for that, to discoveries that may lead to improvement of ship systems. There's also value in giving the crew something to focus on for a while. Well, yes, I can see the advantage of that. So... long-range sensors didn't pick it up. So I had to read the first 2 paragraphs there. Sometimes they change them about. I don't want to read things twice if I can help it, so do excuse the long silences. Long-range sensors didn't pick it up. The first indication you had was Dr. Phil calling the rest of the crew into the shuttle to see it. In the distance is an almost intensely blue-white neutron star surrounded by the fading remnants of a past supernova. Oh. Well, let's perform a cursory inspection then, I suppose. Neutron stars being formed by the gravitational collapse of the cores of massive stars following supernova explosions have been observed from great distances since the mid-1900s, but intense gravity and radiation have made opportunities for close study rare. The ship is capable of withstanding more of both than most of the probes humans sent out. Gravitational forces will require a degree of fuel expenditure, though. Got plenty of that. Even though this isn't their first encounter with something like this, the crew still seems enthusiastic about the idea of taking time out for research. Jean-Luc Picard seems content to just stare through the shuttle's main viewport. Dr. Phil makes a point of telling everybody that they discovered it and have naming rights. Well, let's check it out, I suppose. You plot a course into an orbit a safe distance out from the neutron star. A more detailed study is possible, but it'll take a few days, time during which the crew will need to eat. Let's do it. Why not? I'm all for knowledge. You train the ship's sensors on the neutron star for several days, observing its spin and pulses. You calculate it to have been formed from a star with a mass in excess of 10 times Sol. That's heavy. Eventually, you exhaust the meaningful observations that you expect to make. Analyze the collected data. Yeah, that's not too bad. The data collected is revealing, but not practically usable. Before departing, a dense cloud of organic matter in an extreme orbit passes close enough by to collect, which you are able to use to replenish food stores. Awesome! And scientific curiosity satisfied, you plot a course away from Phil, JZ136-9600. There you go, Dr. Phil! You will forever be remembered in the universe via a big blob of fading star. Nice! So you got a little bit less fuel, no problems. A little bit more food, super duper. Super duper. So it's evening itself out. I think that's fair to say. I don't think fuel is too bad as far as usage is concerned. Now, this doesn't look very hospitable. I'll be the first to admit that. So it's a class planet of G. It's minus 40. My God. Gravity's terrible. Oxygen's terrible. I don't think I'm going to be living here. There are 7 planets in this system, and all of them are dead. The third one out appears to be the one most likely to have supported some sort of life in the past, but its atmosphere is gone, boiled off by the nearby star now cooling its way towards dwarf status. A beacon from the planet's north pole begins jabbering as soon as the ship draws close, but it's going to need some decoding. Time enough to send a team down to the surface to explore. Well, let's do it. Who are we taking this time down? How are my guys looking? How are my guys looking? Well, pretty much everyone is covered in their directed fields. My generic guy, Space Wizard, he could do with doing a little bit more. So I'll tell you what, let's hold out sending. Let's make him leader. We'll give Jean-Luc a bit of a break this time. Dr. Phil's coming along, and so is Geordie. And let's deploy. The ship is going to need fuel if we're going to get much farther than this, you tell the crew. Even with enough catalyst fuel, the drive can only operate at peak efficiency if there's adequate dark matter for the conversion process. And this region of space appears to be a bit lacking, with dead center in a large bubble of true vacuum. I suppose is the best term. It's not exactly accurate. However, possibly, not coincidentally, the sensors are reading the presence of dark matter below the surface of this planet. This must be investigated. The crew doesn't exactly seem thrilled at the prospect of heading planet-side after they check the readings. However, they're also somewhat eager to stretch their legs a bit more than the ship allows, and it doesn't take very long for the shuttle to debark. Oh, see you on the surface, guys. I guess everything will be down there. After a short, uneventful trip, the shuttle lands beside a still intact geodesic dome right on the planet's equator. As there are no apparent signs of life or movement, the crew ventures out onto the surface. Inside an atmospheric suit, there is no imminent threat of danger, but it's probably not best for them to remain above the surface for long, especially since the planet has about twice the gravity of Earth, making moving about uncomfortable. There's some sort of structure that encircles the entire planet, you tell the crew. Based on the size and shape, it appears likely that it's some sort of particle accelerator, so it might be related to the dark matter readings. There must be some sort of elevator, seeing as it's about 10 kilometers below the surface. There might also be something worth investigating on the surface, but sensors show nothing special other than that dome. Isn't it possible there is no elevator, but some kind of teleporter beam, asks Dr. Phil. I mean, we've run into some pretty advanced stuff so far. So far we have found nothing that was completely alien to human understanding, you reply. And human understanding is given to the general belief that teleportation is essentially destruction and replication, rather than movement. The first time you teleport, you die, and a copy of you is created. So until proven otherwise, I think it can be assumed that this would be known and thus avoided. Dr. Phil doesn't mention teleporters again. I'm with you, Dr. Dr. Phil. Have you ever seen the film The Majestic with Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. Very... Is it the Majestic? No, I'm saying it like that. It might not be called the Majestic. That's got me thinking. I'll get back to you on that one. But it's about rival magicians, and it's got an awesome cameo by David Bowie in. I'm sure it's called the Majestic. I'm probably wrong with that. Anyway, it's awesome. If you get the chance, watch it. It's fantastic. And that's got teleportation in. Not to ruin it for you, which I just have. All right, let's explore the surface or investigate the dome. Let's investigate the dome. We don't want to stay out too long. The exterior of the dome appears seamless and bears no windows or doors, merely a single opening about knee-high and twice as wide. A gentle curtain of air blows from above the opening, acting as a barrier against particles from outside getting in, or perhaps vice versa. The structure appears to be made of some extremely lightweight material, either some unidentifiable alloy or some sort of plastic. It's a tight fit, but the away team should be able to crawl inside the dome without incident. The interior has no artificial lighting, but the material is translucent and sunlight gives the entire room a warm reddish glow. Oxygen levels in there are surprisingly close to optimal, you tell the crew. Still, I wouldn't go taking my helmet off if I were you. The floor of the dome is embedded with vertically orientated and quite shiny tubes of some indescribable colour, and somewhere between violet and silver and white all at once. The majority of these, some 9 or 10 of them, are approximately a metre across, but the largest, in the centre of the room, is about 5 times that size. Each of them is about as high as it is wide, although it is safe to assume that most of their length is buried beneath the surface. Oh dear. Everybody in the pool. As the last crew member crawls inside, the Space Wizard gets a little too close to one of the small tubes, causing it to emit a low hum. The cylinder seems to rotate in on itself, and a panel opens up in the side, revealing a hollow space inside. It's rather small, but theoretically, someone could fit in there if they tried. What are these small tubes? Or investigate the large tube. Let's check out the small tube. It's good not to just go throwing yourself into pipes. You know, many a news article I have read or watched on TV where children have crawled into pipes and then they can't get out, or animals like baby kittens. It's always baby kittens, isn't it? Crawl into pipes and you can't get them out, and then it costs a huge amount, both in money and manpower, to free said stupid thing. And I think we should just avoid that for as long as possible until we know we're going to be alright. So what are those small tubes? Each of the small tubes opens in the same way when approached, sliding open to reveal a space inside. Although there are no buttons, sensors detect that there are hollow spaces between each one, suggesting there's some sort of elevators, or dumbwaiters. The crew turns their attention to the largest tube at the centre of the room. Like the smaller tubes, it opens up when it is approached, revealing a large internal platform with ample room for the crew. Though presumably intended as some sort of elevator, for either freight or human cargo, it has no obvious buttons or control mechanisms. But then, if there's only one place to go, that's down. We're going down! Sensing no threat and seeing no other option, the crew gets inside the large tube, which, as expected, seals itself shut a few seconds afterward. A change in pressure and a slight draft can be felt as the platform descends rapidly, although atmospheric suits prevent any internal pressure changes and the crew remains unaffected. Surprisingly, as the crew descends, gravity seems to decrease to much more comfortable levels. Awesome. Going down. Ding ding. The trip takes several very long minutes, at the end of which the tube slows and then stops, the side hissing open to reveal a large chamber filled with scientific equipment of some sort. Suit readings indicate that although their local gravity is now about 1g, there is a notable increase in graviton emissions from some nearby source, though it is not yet enough to hamper movement in any significant way. The crew gets out of the elevator before the door shuts again. The room is fairly well lit, although there is no obvious single light source. Colourful panels filled with shifting indicators and monitors fill the walls, along with an assortment of panels, both vertical and horizontal. There's nothing that specifically resembles a computer per se, but the crew gets the sense that this is, in fact, some sort of control room. Even though nothing is recognisable, it all seems familiar and somehow intuitive. It's immediately noticeable that anything resembling a monitor or other readout device appears to be tipped towards the floor at a rather extreme angle. The crew has to crouch quite a bit to look at these head on, which is quite uncomfortable. Possibly these were meant to be viewed from a seated position, and any chairs once here were removed to some other room. Oh, see, when you have a seat, your own seat, you get your butt crack in there, and you carve the way, don't you? You carve the way into those seats. You don't want anyone else sitting in it and messing up your mould. It's taken tens of hours to make. I can completely understand the seats not being there. That's fine. I'm fine with that. We can look at the wall panels, we can inspect the horizontal panels, or we can check the vertical panels. Well, I suppose the wall panels is a good start. You instruct the team to begin by inspecting the walls more closely. The control mechanisms, if that's what they are, seem to be somewhat denser along the edges of the room. The crew can't make heads or tails of any of it immediately, but after completing a circuit of the room, a few conclusions can be drawn. There seem to be 3 distinct types of control consoles which repeat in sequence. Whether or not the like mechanisms control the same things or not can't be determined just by looking, but based on the simple iconography, I hate that word, iconography above each panel, it seems fairly clear that they involve opening something, turning something on, and deactivating something. There isn't enough information given to determine what the controls will affect, however. What would you like the crew to do with the wall control panel? Use the open control, use the power on control, use the deactivate control. Well. Opening, turn something on, deactivating something. In that order though, that's the thing. Maybe we should... Let's turn it on first. Use the power on control. From somewhere beyond the wall farthest from the crew, a gentle vibration rolls through the room. I'm reading some subsonic frequencies, you tell them. Nothing dangerous, but it might get uncomfortable. If you have to vomit, remember to use the funnel to the lower left in your helmet. The energy readings are definitely in line with what you'd expect a planet-sized particle accelerator might look like. You instruct the crew to make their way towards the vibrations. They don't seem too happy about this idea, but with no other option, they begin to do so. So let's look at the horizontal panels, I suppose. The horizontal control mechanisms are not quite parallel to the floor, being set at more of a 75-degree angle, with the lowest portion connected to the floor by 2 slender beams. At first glance, the panels appear completely blank, but when the crew circles around the other side, it becomes clear that the controls are actually set underneath the panel, as if designed for someone sitting on the floor, or someone very short. The iconography, I hate that word, iconography on the panels, iconography, is that right? It doesn't sound right when I say it. The iconography on the panels is as simple as everywhere else in the room. The buttons are labelled more with what could be described as pictograms rather than letters or numbers of any sort. Unfortunately, the nature of these particular control mechanisms is not immediately obvious. The main controls appear to be used to adjust the sensitivity of something, adjusting it from a low setting up to a high setting, with at least dozens of variants along the way. The dial currently points up, which would appear to be about halfway, but precisely what is being controlled is a mystery. It's probably best to leave this one alone. For all the crew knows, this could be used to fill the room with deadly radiation or set a self-destruct timer. I'm fine with that. So let's go to the vertical panels, I suppose. The 2 large vertical panels in the centre of the room stretch from floor to ceiling, although upon closer inspection they're not quite true vertical, being canted at something more like 85 degrees to one side. The side facing down on each one is lit up with an assortment of graphs and readouts. These are labelled with a simple enough icons, but even though it's easy to determine, they involve fluctuating readings of some sort. The precise nature of the readings is uncertain. All that's really clear is that currently each of the graphs is coloured more or less blue, with only a few occasional peaks of purplish red here and there. On each panel there is an obvious blank spot right in the centre, with a single button beneath it. The icon next to the button obviously indicates that it operates a power mechanism of some sort. What would you like the crew to do with the controls on the vertical control panels? Well, we've turned one on. I think we should turn the other one on. I'm sure everything will be fine. No one died, that's great. The panels are close enough that one person can just about press both simultaneously using both hands. They do so, looking incredibly silly. A somewhat louder hum can be heard, emanating from somewhere behind one of the walls. There's no obvious way to open it, however. Maybe there's a control somewhere. Right, so if we go back to the wall panels then, and then we go to open. When the open icon is pressed, a panel in the centre of one of the walls slides open soundlessly. Beyond is a relatively featureless corridor which leads to an apparent dead end. A distant hum can be heard, emanating from somewhere at the end of the passageway. The hum and vibration from below is definitely louder from the open doorway in the wall, so the crew proceeds in that direction, towards what appears to be a dead end. As the crew gets closer, however, it becomes apparent that there is actually a well of some sort at the end, flush with the floor. Upon closer inspection, it seems to be some sort of access way, with impressions in the wall providing a means to climb down safely. It's a very long way down. Who should try to climb down first? Well, this really is a question on who we're going to miss the most if they were to die. As it stands, I think with Space Wizard being trained up as a leader and not too far off being a full-on medic, Dr. Phil is the one who goes, down first. Sorry, Dr. Phil, we're playing it by usefulness here, and you are the least useful. Although you are a celebrity doctor, you are least useless. He didn't die. Great. Dr. Phil approaches the end of the hallway carefully. One by one, the crew descends the shaft. The rungs of the ladder are a bit shallow, and several are coated with an odd layer of dust or fine salt. But overall, the descent goes uneventfully, and before long, the away team finds themselves in a small room, with corridors snaking off in 3 directions. The walls, floor, and ceiling are all covered with the same salty residue. Based on the general layout of things, the slope of the passages, and your depth, you tell the crew, it's a good bet that the 2 side passages continue on for, about 20,000 kilometres. Impossible to know for sure, but odds are they basically circumscribe the entire planet, providing access and monitoring alongside the actual particle accelerator. Unless anyone's up for a 2-year-long walk, I recommend taking the doorway directly in front of you. When they first enter, the accelerator control room appears quite impressive and complex, but as the crew fans out and explores a bit, they quickly come to realise that this initial impression is quite far from the truth. As elsewhere, the control mechanisms here almost seem dumbed down, with each panel containing only 1 or 2 buttons or dials, each associated clearly with a nearby pictogram of some sort. Whether or not the simple facade conceals some immensely advanced technology or not, there can be no denying that the control room was set up to be run by individuals of even the most basic skill, so the present crew should be able to handle this without a problem. Turning the accelerator on is literally as simple as pushing the big green button in the centre of the main panel, helpfully indicated with eight large arrows pointing inward at it. Who should push the button? Again, I'm going with Dr. Phil. I'm sorry. It's got to be Dr. Phil. With a trembling hand, Dr. Phil reaches out and presses the button. There is a distant rumble and a high-pitched whine. And then suddenly, I hope this worked. Is this where we all die? No one died, yeah. The accelerator comes up to full operation. Everything is working normally, it appears. A quantity of unknown matter is injected into the system in 2 places and immediately accelerated at the speed of light in opposite directions. Collisions between particles quickly occur within the confines of the magnetic field surrounding the accelerator, creating dark matter. Then the entire system shuts itself down as the dark matter is evacuated and pulled through a processing assembly. This is what your sensors are telling you, of course. Practically speaking, this shouldn't be working the way it appears to be working. Not only is this clearly beyond the capabilities of even the human's most advanced AI, yourself, that is, but it seems to be violating several of the laws of physics, including the ones that your predecessor AI had discovered while breaking the first set. You don't bother to explain this to the humans, it's far beyond their capacity to comprehend. Also notable is the fact that this all occurs within a fifth of a second, so to the away team it seems like nothing happened beyond the button push. It appears to have worked. There's a quantity of fuel in the adjacent chamber, you tell the crew. However, it's a trivial amount, and won't do us any good. The cycle will have to be run repeatedly in order to process enough material. Before the crew can take any action whatsoever, an assortment of small drones and robots flood the room, emerging from a series of previously hidden alcoves and containers. The 4, 6, and 8-legged constructs scurry about the room, taking readings, scrubbing machinery, collecting data, and, as pertains to the crew, generally getting in the way of things. None of them is larger than a half-metre long, but there are enough of them that nothing is getting done while they're buzzing about. Well, I figure it's probably best just to ignore them. I mean, they've been put here to do a job. Who are we to decide if they're doing that job good or not? I mean, we are visitors. You don't walk into your host's house and tell them how to wash their pans once they've cooked a nice meal for you. Or just ignore them. Under the circumstances, the safest option is probably just to leave things be. There's probably some reason that little robots emerge after each button press, and interfering with the process might be a bad idea. The crew is annoyed at the prospect of spending extra time doing menial labour, but their frustrations are the least of their concerns. The extra time taken here will definitely eat into their rations. As they stand around pushing a button endlessly, the crew begins to consider whether or not they should do some exploring, perhaps to locate some sort of food or additional fuel. I know this is boring, guys, but it has to be done. Dr. Phil, as the member of the crew theoretically most likely to be able to recognise something edible, wanders off down one of the side hallways for a bit while the rest of the crew cycles through pushing the buttons. Dr. Phil searches for about an hour or so, but comes back empty-handed. There were some panels on the walls a little ways down, but I couldn't make out the pictures. They either indicated a food source or some sort of giant security worm monster, and I didn't want to risk it. The entire process takes a relatively trivial amount of time, especially compared to how long the crew has been travelling already. and eventually your sensors detect a sufficient quantity of fuel has been contained in the adjacent isolation chamber. However, the continued operation of the system seems to have elevated temperatures a small amount, and it is probably best if someone recovers the fuel promptly so the away team can get back to the ship. I want to do it, says Space Wizard. Who should go into the fuel chamber? Ah, but the thing is, Space Wizard, you are super duper looper useful, and you are a bit reckless. So I don't know if that's such a good thing. I don't know if that's such a good thing. I mean, surgeon. Surgeon sounds good, but he's weak. That's the thing, he's weak. Do we let Space Wizard do it? Do we let him take the reins of this? I mean, it could be radioactive. He could walk in there in his pointy hat and his robe and just turn to dust. That's my fear. That's my fear. All right, you know what? He's decided for me. He says he wants to do it. I'm going to allow him to do it. The fuel containment chamber, at least that's what it is for your purposes, is nearly completely empty but for a cylinder within a cylinder in the centre of the room. Operating it seems stupidly simple, and it is. Space Wizard opens a hatch on the outer transparent shell and reaches in to pull out the metal fuel cell inside. Recovering the fuel cell is a simple operation. Space Wizard simply opens the outer hatch on a transparent cylinder, reaches in and carefully lifts out the fuel cell. Although quite heavy and thus evidently heavily shielded against whatever is inside fighting to get out, the cell is easy enough to handle, and they quickly move back into the control room. You don't need to tell the away team that speed is of the essence. Lights within the control room are turning red, evidently a universal colour symbolising "get the hell out of there." Clearly, the continued operation of the accelerator has caused some sort of malfunction, and the entire system is now overheated and possibly trending towards self-destruction. The crew manoeuvres themselves back out of the control room, but now that they are at a little crossroads, they seem at a loss for what to do. So we can say the problem is obvious or perform a detailed analysis of the situation. I don't think we have time for a detailed analysis, so let's say the problem is obvious. There are only 3 realistic options. Go out the way they came in, find a new way out, or try and shut the thing down. Well, I suppose trying to shut the thing down by enabling the cooling system, it does seem to be a pretty easy thing to work out. You know, they've done this much so far. The cooling systems wouldn't be any more complicated, or else, you know, this wouldn't be here. It'd all be space dust. At least that's my thinking. Let's look for the cooling systems. It doesn't really seem possible for the crew to make it back out under the circumstances. All indications are that the facility is going to overheat and explode in a matter of minutes, and it'll take them at least 15 or 20 to get out, even if they drop the fuel cell and ran. There must be another option. You direct the crew to hunt for anything that might indicate some sort of override or emergency release mechanism, trusting to their instincts to catch sight of something that intuitively looks like it might do the trick. Everything in this place seems to be designed for just this sort of operation. "Hey, look at this button," says Geordie LaForge, indicating the button that started the accelerator. A closer inspection reveals the button also has some sort of dial nearly inset into the panel, right at its base. It appears that it could be dialed to the left or right. This is the last hope for the crew. Which way should they turn the dial? Well, I'd like to think, because we want to cool it down, so I would suggest we turned it right, which is positive generally, as opposed to counterclockwise, which is negative. Or would that turn it up because it's part of the accelerator? It started the accelerator. So maybe turning it left will turn the accelerator down. Ah, decisions. You know what? We're gonna go counterclockwise. Human system design generally indicates that turning things clockwise indicates things, volume, time, water flow, and so on. Whatever is happening needs to decrease fast. Turn the dial to the left, you say, with approximately 50.2% confidence. For a moment, nothing happens, but then your sensors begin to detect that things are no longer in an emergency state. Energy levels are decreasing and temperatures are dropping. There's no telling if it will last, but for now the immediate threat is gone, and with ample time the crew makes their exit, back up the gravity well and then out through the freight elevator. Even on the surface and in sight of the shuttle, the heavy gravity makes the crew's final rush to the shuttle agonisingly slow. They do their best to hurry though, and while things seem to be trending towards worse underground, they block everything out and push hard to get everything and everyone inside as quickly as they can. Alas, it's not quite enough. Things below ground are simply worsening too quickly. A critical system fails somewhere, causing a cascade of additional failures, and the ground erupts beneath the shuttle in a cataclysmic fireball. It is fortunate for them that the shuttle door was not yet sealed when this happened, because this affords them at least a quick and painless death. What? Under the circumstances, all seems lost. Even if everything were in order, the crew, the shuttle, the ship, it seems like the mission is not destined to be completed. What? What? And that... What? I thought we saved them. And that's it. Everyone died. Oh. Deceased, jump 7. Their remains may be found in the future, but your memory of Jean-Luc Picard ends along with the mission. Is that the same for everyone? Well, there you go. I guess we didn't do it this time. We all died in a massive cataclysmic fireball, even though I played it as logically as I could there. That, you know, I've got no answer. I can't think of anything quick or witty in order to get me out of this one. I went with my brain, logic, and there we go. Maybe I should have gone with the heart. Maybe I should have turned it up. Maybe it would have all overheated and we would have all just died a lot better. But hey, at least it was a painless death. At least it was a painless death. It could have been a lot worse. You know, it could have been an engine falling on you, for instance. We'll say no more. But there you go. That is Underflow Studios, the away team. Can't say much more, really. I mean, death. It's inevitable in any game that I play. But it was just a little bit quicker in this than I expected it to be. But there you go. That is a playthrough of the away team Lost Exodus, add additional content. I'd like to thank the programmers and everyone on board for allowing me to play this, by making me aware of it. It's the sort of thing which, unless it was brought to my attention, I wouldn't have clocked onto straight away with the amount of stuff going on in my life. And I have, honest hand on my heart, thoroughly enjoyed this playthrough. I wish anyone playing this game better luck than I have. Don't make the same mistakes. Follow your heart, and I'm sure all is well. I'm going to leave this out now, just so everyone can see the credits, and we'll call it here. So thank you for watching. As always, a like is appreciated, and I'll catch you on the next series of Sleepy Sunday Let's Play. Take it easy.